So, I just wanted to begin today's episode with this image. This was produced by one of my subscribers, Martin Endy, and I really hope I got your last name pronounced correctly there, mate. This was absolutely amazing. It's supposed to be me on my day off. What's most impressive about this? This isn't an entry for the t-shirt competition. This is just something I got sent through. And honestly, I am absolutely blown away by it. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to be getting this one printed out and put into a frame on the wall because I just love the image. It's me through and through. Anyways, on to the episode. G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome to Battle Rating 3.7 Arcade. Yes, I'm going to do an arcade flyout. I haven't done one of these in a while. I actually haven't played arcade since the very start of patch 1.51. I just simply haven't had the time. As most of you know, I mainly do realistic content, but I do have a habit of jumping into arcade if I need to relax. I've spoken about it in the past. Or I tend to do that, or I tend to do ground attack. But recently, the last two patches, when I've needed to relax, I've just jumped off into other games. Coming back from the break, however, this is all I really wanted to do, was just fly around and derp. Nothing realistic, nothing tactical, just shoot some people. I did, however, notice that a few things have changed in arcade since the last time I played. Most notably has been 1.53's addition of the G-Lock mechanic. Now, everyone who plays realistic is aware of this, everyone who's on the channel is aware of this at this time. The G-Lock mechanic, I haven't spoken of so far, but honestly, I'm not a fan of it. It's not that the idea is bad. I think the idea is actually really good. I think the way it's been implemented is rather poor. It feels very, very, very gamey. It's very stat-based. And the trick with basing a mechanic around a series of pilot performance stats that are based on how much experience you have earned, it's very difficult to make something like that feel realistic. And honestly, at the moment, it doesn't. It feels like there's a little stamina bar, and when it runs out, you lose control of your plane. And I don't like that at all. It shouldn't be that way. But what surprised me even more was that this system is in arcade as well. Now, let's be clear about arcade. Arcade, I don't really speak about it, and whenever I've talked about needing to make changes to game modes, I've never really spoken about arcade. And the reason why is because I don't think arcade needs anything changed. Arcade is actually a really good game mode. It is unrealistic, it is bonkers off the wall the way the planes maneuver. Everything about it is totally ridiculous. And it should be, because it's arcade. That's exactly what it should be like. It doesn't matter that the ground forces bombing doesn't make sense. It's arcade, it's meant to feel gamey. Because that's entirely what the game mode is about, which is completely cool. I mean, hell, even the maps don't make sense. This map we're on now is called Two Towns. If you've spent the time to actually read the little blurb about this map, it's supposed to be these two towns which are about a kilometre apart on the map, or a couple of kilometres apart on the map, have decided they don't like one another. So both of them have managed to build up a complete modern military force, or at least by War Thunder standards, a modern military force consisting of multinational aircraft, and have sent them at one another to kill one another. I mean, that's the kind of crazy shit you would expect to find in a Japanese anime, and I'm entirely cool with that. The flight models, this I-16 can pull in excess of 15 Gs almost instantly, and that's just flicking the mouse around. That's before I actually start using the key bindings. All I need to be doing is over about 320 kilometers an hour, and I can pull well over 15 Gs in this thing. The airframe itself, I've dove this thing out to over 800 kilometers an hour. The wings just don't rip off aircraft in arcade. Engine temperature is almost entirely irrelevant inside of War Thunder Arcade. If you watch the engine temps on some of the aircraft that I fly, actually I'm not entirely sure if it happens this match, but it has happened in the past. I've been flying around in piston aircraft before that have had engine temperatures in excess of 1,200 degrees after the cooling system's been shut down on them, and the plane just did not give a shit. It just kept flying. And that is perfectly fine. So in the middle of this bonkers, ridiculous game mode, which is great fun to fly because nothing makes sense and it's all fun, all of a sudden you've got this trying to be semi-realistic G-Lock mechanic, which the tolerances of the mechanic itself seem to be very similar to realistic. So the second you throw your plane into that 15G turn, you black out almost immediately, and 3 or 4 seconds after that, you've lost all control of the aircraft. It just doesn't make sense in the terms of the game mode. It caught me completely by surprise. It would be like suddenly having engine overheating matter inside of War Thunder Arcade, or suddenly giving everybody limited ammunition that needed to be reloaded at the runway and making everybody take off at the start of the match. It would just feel really out of place, and that's exactly what this G-lock mechanic does. It feels stupid. Actually, you know what? Before we get too far into this particular battle, I'm just going to flick over to another battle for just a moment. Okay, so the battle you were just watching before was my first time flying arcade again in patch 1.53, in about, since the start of patch 1.51. This was the match I had right after it, and it occurs to me that the first match I never actually discovered how much of an effect G-lock has in arcade now. It was this match was the one that made me realise it, and I'm going to show you the perfect example. I'm manoeuvring here to engage an A6M2. I'm in the Yak 9B. Now I'm going to do a steep dive on this zero, and then I'm going to pull vertical into a loop and re-dive on the zero underneath. This would be a smart manoeuvre in arcade to engage the vastly more manoeuvrable zero. The zero is going to go down, and then it's going to pull up vertically in a turn that is actually tighter than my own. So there we go. 11 Gs, 8 Gs, 7 Gs, lost control of the aircraft. Now the Zero's already completed its loop, it's doing at least 11 Gs if not more as well, and just fired vertically up into my plane while I was out of control, and executed me. Now, do you see how strange that lockout looked in arcade? I mean, this is a game mode where you've got aircraft that can pull 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I've seen 20 Gs in aircraft in arcade before, and suddenly if you fly them that way, you're going to pass out. In just a matter of seconds, mind you. And just to be clear, that what I just showed you, that plane was fresh out of spawn. I'd pulled no Gs prior to that maneuver, so it wasn't some kind of wear down. That was just immediately what happened, and that crew was near max. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how it measures up on the new system, but on the old system, that particular crew was an 800, nearly 900 point crew. 1100 points was a maximum level crew with all skills maxed out. So yeah, that really caught me by surprise. It just feels so out of place, and I think it actually has a negative effect on the game mode. It's not as fun to fly anymore. In fact, the G-lock mechanic was frustration more than anything else. All those wicked, stupidly high G dogfights you used to be able to have are just not possible anymore, because half the planes that you're fighting against are going to G-lock out, and that was the other thing I noticed too. Some planes seem to be extremely affected by this, other planes did not. For example, I took the Zero out afterwards, and I put the Zero into 14 G turns, and I never blacked out, I never had a problem with it. But 11 Gs will knock out the Yak 9 pilot. The I-16 seems to be capable of 13 Gs with no problems whatsoever, so it can pull more. I don't get why that is. That guy there who just died incidentally, if you notice, he actually G-locked out on that turn. He lost all control. That's why he was flying straight towards the ground. He only got out of the G-lock after I set him on fire. Somehow I don't think he'll be liking the G-lock mechanic all that much either. So enough about G-lock. Since I haven't played for a while, has anything else changed since the start of patch 1.51? Well, honestly, I felt like I was flying World War planes a little bit. Not so much the way the flight models themselves were reacting, but just the sheer amount of damage that planes were taking in order before they would actually go down. I'm not entirely sure if this was the weapons across the board in arcade have had their damage reduced, or whether or not the damage models of every single aircraft in War Thunder Arcade have been buffed up and increased. Criticals outside of the pilot snipes seemed largely non-effective, and even pilot snipes seemed to be relatively rare, although that F6F just did give me a good one then. But I suppose, is the damage model changes really a bad thing? Well, personally I preferred it when the damage models were a little bit softer. You know, the quick deaths of the enemy aircraft coupled with the ridiculous manoeuvrability, and sneaky little bastard got me again there. I didn't think he'd get me from that angle. But anyways, as I was saying, the short 2 kill time of the old damage models, coupled with the extreme manoeuvrability of the aircraft, made the battles extremely fast, extremely fluid, extremely enjoyable. The new damage models just seem to slow things up. As I said, I'm not a fan of that slowing up. I liked it better when it was fast, when it was rapid, when it was sharp. But that being said, I can see how a lot of people would probably like arcade speed actually slowed down a couple of notches, so yeah, is it necessarily a bad thing? Not really. I suppose it depends on what the majority of actual long-term arcade players would prefer, that fast fluid content, or whether or not they would like their battles to be a little bit slower and give them a little bit more time to think. Yeah, this one I'll put down to personal preference. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, it just comes down to what people prefer. And if it's in-game, and I haven't heard anybody complaining about damage models, so I assume the damage models may have been changed for some time. It may not be a new or recent change, and I haven't seen much in the way of people complaining about it, so I assume that the majority of arcade players are perfectly fine with it, and it's just my personal preference more than anything else. Other than that, not really a whole lot has changed with arcade. I still had some pretty good time outside of the frustrating G-lock mechanics. This match itself I was having really good fun on, as much as I was aiming horribly and I have no idea why. And I know most pilots don't really think much about the terrain they're flying over in realistic or sim, but I can tell you as somebody who's flown a lot of bloody battles, honestly I was really enjoying playing on a map that wasn't Hokkaido, or wasn't Krimsk, or wasn't... Actually, that's actually the main two. This patch I've basically been getting Hokkaido, Krimsk and Korea. And that has really been all I've flown. I was so close to pulling out of that rollover then, just not quite enough. But the Hellcat tried to follow me in the same move, and he did exactly the same thing. So back out in the I-16 for my final plane. However, almost all the ticket score has been bled out. I was actually looking at trying to hit the last two ground units, unfortunately. I was way too slow in realising I needed to do something about that. So, first match back playing arcade in what is pretty much a full patch at this time. From the start of 1.51 to the start of 1.53, we've basically got a full patch change over here since I've played. 10 kills, 1 assist, 4 deaths. Not a bad match overall considering the players on board. There are actually some really good players on our team. I mean, 16 kills and 3 assists for first place. Niam Oldace is clearly a player that spends a lot of time in arcade and is very good at it, and bloody good match flown by him too. 33,898 silver lines earned, and I actually forgot to show the RP earnings on this particular one, but it was 11,648 RP earned for this match, which was enough to complete the research on this Yak 9. And a quick apology in here is, I think I said before that I was flying the Yak 9B. I was actually only flying the Yak 1B. And with the Yak 9B finished, I will be able to test its bombing capability very soon. I'm actually reasonably interested on how this Yak is going to perform. I'm not entirely sure we needed another Yak in the tree, but at least this one is different to all the others. It does have an internal bomb bay, and the way the bombs are held in this thing, sticking through the parcel shelf like that, is insane. I mean, that setup is slightly more advanced than just opening the canopy on the aircraft and tossing the bombs out the side as you fly over the target. And that, of course, also means the PE-8 is under research right now, and is actually the last plane in patch 1.53 that I have left to unlock. Actually, by the time you're watching this, I've probably already finished unlocking it, so I'll have it on the channel soon enough as well. So, arcade, it's still actually fun, although I am really not a fan of the G-lock mechanics being incorporated in there, and hopefully Gaijin will do something about them soon enough, because they seem really, really out of place. One more thing before I go. Many of you may notice that on my social media and on my channel right now, I have changed my logo slightly. I have changed the Aussie flag in the background over to the French flag as a sign of respect to those caught up in the events in Paris over the last few days. Since the internet's not so good at these sort of things, this is my equivalent of flying a flag at half-mast out of respect. I'll be doing so for a week before the logo will go back to normal. To my subscribers within France, I really hope you guys are all okay. I hope you're safe. I hope your families are safe. To my subscribers outside of France who have friends and family within the country, I hope everybody is okay. I know the thoughts of a small channel like mine are pretty much irrelevant. They're not going to make much of a difference in the grand scheme of things, but the thoughts of myself and my family are with you. To everyone else, just one thing. I hate politics. I don't give a rat's ass about the politics of the situation going on in that section of the world, or any of the politics behind this whole event. Keep it off my channel. I won't say it twice. And to everybody else that's left over, click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.